Yes, hello everyone. Welcome back to another video here on Clay with me, Seamus Brady, your host. I'm joined for this one by Matthew Hurley, the Gaelic Statsman. We are jumping in to preview the Allianz League finals for another year, 2025. Matthew, I can't wait for this. We have a lot to get through. Obviously, the 4 Football League finals. We've got 3 Hurling League finals, final round of action from the LGFA, and of course some camogie action. A lot across the board, mainly of course, the league finals. Looking forward to jumping into it. Thanks for jumping on again.
Yeah, no problem, Seamus. Yeah, I have to come on again. Yeah, I suppose it's interesting enough league finals this weekend. You would say, like in Division 2, Division 3, and Division 4, you have the top 2 teams, the top dogs. Then in Division 1, between Mayo and Kerry, like even look at stats, which I'm going to post in just a second on Instagram. I think they're going to be shown on this show as well. Mayo and Kerry stats don't look like they're battering teams whatsoever. It looks like they've kind of squeaked their way to the league final. But you look at the way the league has probably played out, like Kerry in second place on 8 points, Tyrone's second bottom on 7 points. That's how close it was in Division 1, no doubt about it. Of course, there is the Hurling League finals as well. There is some down in Kildare, obviously. They are meritors of their place in Division 1B next season. There's no doubt about that. Then you have Division 3 between Mayo and London, and then Division 4 between Fermanagh and Louth. Should be very good games, but even though none of them are being streamed live, as far as I know, which is kind of a shame in terms of kind of promoting the game of hurling. But look, the Football League finals are going to be on this weekend. Should be a cracker of a weekend. And yeah, looking forward to it. But I think the negative is, Seamus, with the championship the very next week. And I know from my work in Southern Star and things like that, we're already previewing kind of the Cork and Limerick game for Saturday week. And the thing is, Limerick are going to be in the league final on the Saturday against Wexford. The next week, they're playing against Cork at the Gaelic Grounds on Saturday. I know it's not my own county. It is Limerick. It is the opposition technically, but you have to feel sorry for them. And you have to feel sorry for every county kind of going from a league final then it's straight into the championship next week. Mayo are in the same situation as well. They're playing against Kerry. Then they play against Sligo next weekend. Maybe something that needs to be fixed in the next 2 seasons, but I don't think it's going to be fixed in the near future, which is a shame.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a pretty consistent issue over the last few seasons. I remember Mayo, in particular, winning the league title against Galway in 2023 and then getting knocked out by Roscommon immediately after in the Connacht Championship. And that really opened up the debate back then. And nothing's really changed since then. It's been a very consistent debate at this time of year, always about the calendar and about overload on fixtures, etc. But for this weekend, we're going to put all that to one side. We can come back and talk about the championship when the championship runs around. But for now, it's time for the league. And I don't want to hear anybody saying that any of these teams aren't going to try and win their respective league finals this weekend. They are all coming to Croke Park or to Inniskeen or to Hawkfield or wherever they're playing. They're all coming to win their respective league titles. Nobody is going to think, oh yeah, let's put out a second string team, sacrifice the opportunity of winning a piece of national silverware just so we can have a slight advantage going into the first championship game. I mean, is it even an advantage? Like, we'll discuss that later on. But for me, I personally, we're going to start with the Division 1 final, which takes place on Sunday at Croke Park between Mayo and Kerry. The first thing I want to say about this game, Matthew, is I love the fact that they are competing for the Micheál and Muircheartaigh Cup. I mean, what a lovely touch by the GAA, by Allianz, to rename the trophy that is given to the team that wins the League Division 1 in football as the Micheál and Muircheartaigh Cup. I mean, for an absolute icon of the GAA and an icon of Irish history, it's a beautiful touch. I love seeing it. It's pretty poetic that Kerry are in the final as well. They have a glorious opportunity to win this game. I mean, it's a lovely touch, isn't it?
It definitely is, yeah. And it's a tribute to a great man, obviously. And to name this trophy after such a great commentator and things like that, I think it was kind of obvious that the GAA were going to do this because like he's probably steeped in Gaelic games history. There's no doubt about it. And yeah, I think it was obviously the right thing to do, and it's just a brilliant honour to have. But not just for Kerry, if Mayo go on and win this trophy as well, it might bring a good omen, if that makes sense, for Mayo in terms of their struggles in terms of winning trophies. But I think both sides, as you mentioned at the start, I think whatever the circumstance in terms of Mayo playing against Sligo in the championship next week, both sides, Mayo and Kerry, are going to go hell for leather to go on and win this game, because I think Mayo wants a trophy on the board just to probably show that Kevin McStay means business this season. And as for Jack O'Connor, it's a tricky one. I know this is about to be all about Muircheartaigh Cup, and it is a great thing that the GA are doing in terms of naming the trophy. But I can't help but think as well, does Jack O'Connor actually want this league title? I know I'm starting a little bit of a downer here, but Kerry fans and the Kerry management and the Kerry players all want one trophy only. That is the Sam Maguire Cup in July.
Yeah,
I don't think Kerry fans will, like, to be honest, if Jack wins the league and the Munster Championship and he doesn't win the All-Irelands, I still think he's gone at the end of the year.
Yeah, so, I even think if he wins the All-Ireland, I think he's gone. I think he's been under the microscope so much over the course of the seasons that he's had with Kerry now since his return. I feel like if he wins the All-Ireland, it might be a nice note to go out on. But then again, we've been proven wrong the last few years. A lot of people thought maybe McGeeney would walk away after Armagh won it last year. He didn't. A lot of people thought Desi Farrell would walk away after winning it again with Dublin. He didn't. And so you never know. Jack might stay on again. But naming the cup, the Micheál Muircheartaigh Cup, for me, does increase as well the appeal of winning it for the teams involved, especially Kerry. Like, if Kerry have the opportunity to be the inaugural winners of this trophy, it's an unbelievable honour for them. And I don't think that any team would pass up on giving it their absolute best, because this guy, as I said, it's such a nice touch that he has a bit of GA heritage named after him. Like, you've got like the Micheál O'Hare Press and Media Centre in Croke Park, but Micheál Muircheartaigh deserved something of this stature as well, and I'm delighted that he has gotten it. And we're moving then to the game itself. So big credit to yourself here, Matthew. Obviously, you sent me on the graphics going into the game. We're going to start off with Kerry and their strengths and weaknesses, etc. But first of all, their route to the final, where they find themselves here in this game. So obviously, their wins, one of the most impressive was, of course, that win against Derry, 5-15 to 124 in an absolute crazy game. And they lost at home to Donegal, 23 points to 118, and lost at home to Dublin by 19 points to 115. That put them in a position where they were looking over their shoulder towards potential relegation. The victory over Tyrone was crucial. It proved out to be crucial for not just Kerry, but for Tyrone as well. If Tyrone had won that game, Tyrone themselves would be in a league final. But ultimately, Kerry got the win. David Clifford, the man on the screen there, got a hat-trick in that game. Following that, they lost to Mayo, then 21 points to 116, before beating Armagh and Galway back-to-back to put themselves into the league final. They've scored 16 goals and 122 points, an average of 218 a game, and conceded an average of 119 a game, for a total of 5 goals and 136 points. And there with their scorers, David Clifford, of course, leading the way, 322 for him, 315 for Paul Gainey, who continues to just perform pure excellence. Dylan Gainey with 213. Shawnee O'Shea hasn't played all of the games, but he still hit 17 points. Conor Gainey also with 2-9. Paddy Clifford with 1-9. And then you move down through the gears. Diarmuid O'Connor, Brino Bioglick with 1-4 each. Barry, Dan O'Sullivan, Tony Brosnan with 5 points. Donald Sullivan 1-2. Micheál Burns 4 points. And then, as you see, going down the list there. But for Kerry, obviously going through the results, they started off the league campaign. They had 2 tough defeats in their first 3 games. They were looking over their shoulder towards relegation, but when their back was against the wall, they pulled out some big results and they find themselves in the league final. What have you been impressed by Kerry with? And then what do you think are some of the weaknesses that they've shown?
The one thing that I have been impressed with, looking at the stats and everything, is probably the goal scoring. Like, they've scored at least a goal in every game, which I've noticed there, including 5 against Derry, 3 against Tyrone, 2 against Armagh, 3 against Galway. And even the games they were struggling in, against Mayo, Dublin and Donegal, at least they scored a goal in those games. So they have a goal threat now. And when you look at the Donegal game, the goal, if memory serves me correctly, was scored by Diarmuid O'Connor. The Dublin game, I'm not entirely sure who it was. Mayo, I think it was, or was one of the midfielders that got it. Paddy Clifford got one against Armagh. Paul Gainey got one, I think, early 2 against Derry as well. So the goal scorers are coming across the whole team as well. Like Clifford's got 3, yes, but you have Paul Gainey on 3 goals. Dylan Gainey, who's really stepped up in this league campaign with 213 as well. Conor Gainey, like he hasn't been probably a mainstay in the Kerry team over the last few seasons. He's been excellent for Dingle in the club championship, but he hasn't really stated his claim and started 15 for Kerry, maybe not even the first team panel. But he scored 2-9 in this league campaign, which is a positive for them. Even Shawnee O'Shea, who hasn't played every game, as he pointed out there, he's still got 17 points on the board. So the scores are divvied out across the team, and you have goal scoring in this Kerry team as well, which is a positive. I think the negative really is, I would say, the fact they've conceded 5 goals is decent enough. 5 goals in 7 games isn't too bad, but 136 points is the average of 19 points a game. I mean,
how much does the new rules play into that? How much, because compared to previous years, obviously it's worrying, but the reality is how many of them are 2-pointers? How many of them are, because of the new rules?
Possibly a few of them there. I know for sure Armagh only got 1 2-pointer against them. I don't think Kerry actually got a 2-pointer in their last 2 games. Correct me if I'm wrong, no, I don't think they did against Armagh. They definitely didn't against Armagh, and I don't think they did against Galway either. So, that's an amazing stat in its own right as well. It's very, very interesting. I think the first 5 games in particular, not just the defensive record, I think the first 5 games for Kerry were very, very concerning. Like against Derry, yes, the goal scoring was unbelievable, but they needed kind of goals to get them out of jail at Celtic Park. Then they lose those games against Donegal, Dublin and Mayo. And against Tyrone, let's be honest, Seamus, with about 10 minutes to go in that game, they looked then buried. And then David Clifford produces his bit of magic and they get out over the line in Pomeroy that day. So I feel like in the first 5 games they looked very, very ropey, but then in the last 2 they've looked really, really good. The forwards have looked sharp, but maybe again to tie into it, maybe that's a positive for Kerry. Maybe they're peaky at the right time, because the first 5 games.
Yeah, we've comments flying in here, guys. Love to see it. Sean O'Malley says literally exactly what you're saying verbatim, pretty much. Match. He says Kerry winning without playing well has to be a positive sign. Croke Park will suit them, and the new rules in general should be a great game. I'm just going to run through the comments that we have, because we have a few flying in. Love to see it, guys. Brian O'Riordan back on the show. Good to have you back, Brian, fellow dub. He says, had Donegal taken their goal chances and scored their penalty, Mayo would have been relegated. That is a crazy stat to reflect on. Sean says here, every Kerry manager doesn't seem to stick around on. Peter Keane, Eamon Fitzmaurice, Jack O'Connor have had similar length spells, some successful but not much longevity. It usually tends to be about 3 to 5 years that they tend to stick around.
I think Eamon Fitzmaurice at 6 now, I think.
Eamon Fitz was 2013 to 2018, and then Peter Keane came in for 2019. So, yeah, roughly 5 years, 6 years. NIRB then says, good move by GA this week, making 1 and 3 and 2 and 4 on the same day. I did like this move. Some additional crowd numbers as well, in my opinion. 8,000 at the Division 3 and 4 final on Saturday wasn't good. Division 3 and 4 needed the recognition. Agreed. Then Brian says here, Kerry's strength is the forwards and weakness is defence. Kerry scored 16 goals, which is extremely impressive. Mayo's strength is the half back line. The running game is strong. Their forward line is the inconsistent and say is a weakness. Brian says Kerry to win a high scoring game. And Liam, a regular guest on the show, Liam White, of course, he says Ryan O'Donoghue will be a real test for the Kerry defence considering what they've conceded points wise. And then Brian says Kerry more than happy to take points and not relying on 2-pointers. Have not scored any 2-pointers in their last 2 games. There's a stat to match the great Matthew Hurley on the stats there. But yeah, just in general, my kind of takeaway from Kerry looking at them in this league campaign is to pretty much completely agree with Sean O'Malley there, saying that they haven't played well. I really don't think that they have played extremely well to get to this final, but they have showcased some individual brilliant performances. And I thought their performance on the final day against Galway was superb. 324 to rack that up, and the threats that they had in that game. Liam White pointed it out on my pod last week that I think it was 318 or something came from players that weren't the Cliffords. So they're really showcasing in that game the extra threats that they have. We've had players like Conor Gainey, like Dylan Gainey, Paul Gainey. all stepping up. Micheál Burns as well, reminding what he can bring back to the panel. Kerry are kind of showing their resume, if you like, showing what they're capable of. They're not exactly hitting you with everything that they got, but they're giving you a pretty good indication of what they've got. I personally think Kerry are coming into this final as favourites. I think that they have a higher ceiling than Mayo do. I think if Kerry play 10 out of 10 and Mayo play 10 out of 10, I think Kerry win. It's just a question of, can Kerry turn up to the level that they're capable of? I think Mayo have been a little bit more consistent over this league campaign, which brings us nicely along to Mayo. So looking at them here, their fixtures, they started off the league campaign pretty badly, losing to Dublin and Croke Park by 2 points in an entertaining game. The second game was the bad one. That was the one that had everybody genuinely concerned for how Mayo were getting on with these new rules, and everybody was thinking at this point, myself included, that they were going to get relegated. That 10-point defeat to Galway was the one that had everybody concerned. Then they bounced back, won a hugely important game at home to Tyrone by 12 points to 10. They got that dramatic draw against Armagh, 117 each, and beat Kerry in a crunch game, 21 points to 116. Of course, their opponents this weekend again. Then they beat Derry on the road, 219 to 117. They did the hard work in the second half of that game before beating Donegal in a dramatic final day fixture, of course, where Colm Reap saved the penalty, which has ultimately got them into this league final. Incredibly, over periods of that day, they went from being in the relegation zone to being in the league final to back in the relegation zone to now topping the table. This whole league campaign has genuinely been pretty much impossible to predict. As shown here, that they've literally nearly scored and conceded exactly the same amount. 1 point in the difference. They've conceded 1 point more than they've scored. 5 goals and 118 points they've scored. 5 goals and 119 points they've conceded. Works out roughly about the same per game. Looking at their scorers, no surprise that Ryan O'Donoghue carries the main tally, but a massive shout out has to go to Matthew Ruan coming in there in second place with 16 points from midfield. He has been unbelievable. Frank Irwin with 112 has impressed. Paul Towie is, for me, a big player for them. 10 points from him. David Neary with 1-7. Jordan Flynn, who in my opinion made a big impression when he returned to the team, with 1-5 from him. And you look down through, they have a decent spread of scorers. I wouldn't say as threatening as Kerry, but they're definitely a really solid Mayo team. Same question that I threw to you about Kerry. What has impressed you the most about Mayo's league campaign?
I think in terms of not conceding too many goal opportunities, I think that has to be a positive for Mayo. They haven't conceded 2 or more goals in any of the games, which has struck me. So that has to be a positive. But then again, on the flip side of the coin, the only game where they scored 2 or more goals in their run to the final was against Derry. And to be honest, that might have been a Derry team on the wall and kind of expecting relegation in its own right. So yeah, I think, look, it goes in 2 ways for Mayo there. I think another positive actually is their scores as well. You mentioned Matthew Rand there. I think Ryan O'Donoghue's been exceptional again. 37 points. He's a guy that's really stepped up for Mayo. And he actually could be the top scorer outright in the Division 1 campaign this season if he gets 4 points or more at the weekend, which, judging by his form, he's going to get. Yeah. I think he is going to get. So he's been in really good form. Frank Orman as well, David Neary. David Neary's been a player that's come in to this Mayo team in the league. Yeah, he has been. He's really good. Paul Towie as well, and Frank Orban in particular. Those 2 players, you were saying, do they have potential? Do they have something to add to this Mayo team? They have shown in the league that they do. And then you look at Jordan Flynn. Completely agree with you. Once he came back from Crossmagnon at the Rovers, they're running the All-Ireland series. He's been an absolute revelation in this Mayo team. Fergal Bolins hasn't been as good or prolific as last year in the league when you look at these points from played in, but still 7 points is a decent tally. That's a point a game. Like, that's pretty good in fairness to him. Jack Carney as well with 1-4. He got, I think it was 1-2 or 1-3 against Donegal as well in that final day game. So he could take this form, that form that he showed against Donegal, into this game as well. Conor Reid, another new player. Darren Micheál. Like, Darren Micheál's kind of a player. I know he's on the list with only 3 points. But I looked at the top scorers down through the years in 2021, for example. Remember, in semi kind of COVID, we were thinking, Darren Micheál, this guy's going to be a
Yeah.
huge player for Mayo in the next few seasons. He's done okay. He has done okay in the last few games, and hopefully that'll give him confidence to push on as well. So they do have forwards there, Mayo, but can they produce it on a big level like this? And I genuinely think that Mayo probably want this title, this Division 1 title, more than Kerry do. That might be
Really?
an unpopular opinion. I
Really?
do think,
Even
yeah.
I disagree with that. I really think Kerry will want to win it with the fact that it's the inaugural Micheál Muircheartaigh Cup. I think like for the folklore around it and for who Micheál is, if Jack O'Connor's Kerry go out there and look like they've not given it 100%, that would be a massively unpopular move.
Maybe so, but as I said at the start of the show, it's Sam Maguire Kerry want.
But they want both. Like Kerry won't see it as picking one or the other. They're going to Croke Park with national silverware on the line. They're going to think, we need to win this, and then we'll win the Sam Maguire too. Like the last time Kerry won the All-Ireland, they did win the league too. And they beat Mayo in the final of that league.
Yeah, but that was kind of a Kerry team that needed to prove a point in terms of winning a trophy and in terms of putting away teams. I remember that around that time in 2020, 2 years earlier, they got ambushed by Cork. And they probably needed to prove a point in terms of winning a league at that point. Do this Kerry team need to prove a point by winning the league title?
Yeah, I would agree. I think they do. Like, where are they at now compared to where they were then? They were in an All-Ireland final in 2019. They were terrible in 2020. They were okay in 2021, but they fell short to a very good Tyrone team. Like, last year, they were bad. Like, the year before, they got to a final and lost. I wouldn't see them as too far off what they were in 2022. The only difference is they've got the monkey off the back in that they have won. But if you were to say to Kerry, do we need to win this game? Yes. Like, I would say more so than Mayo. Mayo have won a more recent league title. Mayo also are aware that they have it.
Oh, yeah, they have. Sorry, they have 23. Yeah.
But Mayo also will think that, like, they've got Galway and Roscommon waiting for them in Connacht. Like, two huge tests at least. Like, Kerry obviously have Cork, which always put it up to them. But apart from Cork, I don't think anybody would be able to lay a glove on them.
Yeah, I still believe, though. I still believe there's a lot of pressure on. I still think there's a lot of pressure on Jack to deliver in All-Ireland. And is there an argument that Kerry would show too much of their best in this league final?
Again, no, because we know what their best is. It's like when you watched, I don't know, it's like when you watched the Chicago Bulls documentary with Michael Jordan in it, and it's like they have a game-winning shot and they all just triple team Michael Jordan. It's like, you can play smoke and mirrors all you want in the league. We all know your plan in the championship is going to be built around David Clifford, Shawnee O'Shea when he comes back. Paddy is going to be stringing it together. The only thing that Kerry can do now is tighten up the defence. But going forward, we know what the plan is. We know who the key guys are. So I think, for me personally, I think that Jack has to win this game. I think that, because if they've won this and they've won Munster and they looked really good, and let's say they fall short in a brilliant game to Galway or something in the semi-final, hypothetically. If they've won the inaugural Micheál Muircheartaigh Cup in the league and Munster, maybe there's a bit of wiggle room to give Jack one more year. But if they've lost this final...
No, I disagree, Seamus. I completely disagree with that statement. And you know, I like you on that, but I completely disagree with that statement. Like, I think it's
more likely that they're not going to go all out to win this game. Like, I think all the big guns will be there for Kerry. If Shawnee's fit, he'll play.
Yes, I do think the big guns will play, but I just feel like Mayo will want this trophy more. And I do think, even if they go out in a blaze of glory in an All-Ireland semi-final or an All-Ireland quarter-final, I still don't think the Kerry fans will think it's good enough.
Mm-hmm.
That is the attitude down in Kerry.
But I think that both ways, man. I think that both ways. I think that they think it won't be good enough to lose this, and it won't be good enough to lose the All-Ireland. I think that they want all of the success. They want to win the league and the All-Ireland. So Jack, I think, could save himself by winning the All-Ireland if they lose this. But I think given the legacy of Micheál and the way that it will feel really special if they win it, he'll buy himself a little bit more rope that maybe, just maybe, he'll be able to hold on. I'm not saying it's a slam dunk that he will, but it will be in a better position than if he lost this one too. And I personally think they want to win both. That's my stance on it. I think that they won't accept losing this one. But obviously more so they won't accept losing the All-Ireland. But I think I think Kerry are going up thinking this is a national final in Croke Park, and it's named after Micheál. It's the inaugural Micheál Muircheartaigh Cup. We have to win this one. It's against Mayo as well. Like it's not like it's against the team that they never play. It's against one of the biggest rivals too.
I'd say their biggest rivals are either Dublin or Tyrone. So
one of. Yeah.
I feel that's interesting. I do feel like if this was Tyrone or Dublin that they were playing, they'd want to win this badly.
Okay.
I feel like with this Mayo team that haven't really staked a claim in the last few seasons, and who Kerry have beaten quite comfortably, like they beat them comfortably in the league final in 22. They beat them comfortably in the All-Ireland quarter-final in 22. The last few seasons, Kerry have beaten Mayo when it came to the crunch very, very comfortably. So they kind of have nothing to prove either. Whereas this Mayo team possibly do. It's a new group of players. Kevin McStay has a lot to prove in terms of the second game in particular, as we mentioned previously against Galway. A lot of people had us worried about how Mayo were developing in this league campaign, and with the new rules, they seem to be turning a bit of a corner now. I feel like for Mayo, it's important for them to keep the momentum going. So I think Mayo would want this more, to be honest with you.
Okay. We'll agree to disagree on that one. Personally, I think Kerry would want it more. I think there'd obviously be the motivation for Mayo to stop Kerry winning this one and to prove a point and everything that you said. But I personally think we'll get to the prediction now. So we've gone through Kerry's strengths, Kerry's weaknesses. My main takeaway from Mayo, just before we get to the prediction, the main thing I've been impressed with Mayo by is the resilience. Again, the way that they've bounced back from the very bad start that they had. They had a very poor start, losing those back-to-back games, particularly the way that they lost to Galway in the second game, one of their biggest rivals at home, and the way they lost by 10 points, giving away those two-pointer frees constantly. And the way that McStay's interview after the game seemed like he wasn't really accepting that this is happening, and he was kind of pointing the blame at this and that. I thought that they were definitely going down. The way that they've turned it around with big wins against Kerry, crucially, against Tyrone, against Donegal on the final day, like they've really, really, really turned around not only their own form, but the way that people are perceiving them. And I think that's been massive. Matthew Ruan has stood out to me as their player of the league. Jordan Flynn, when he came back in, his impact on the team now is unquestioned. Aidan O'Shea always makes a difference when he returns. And in Ryan O'Donoghue, they have one of the best forwards in the country. I personally think, and this is coming to prediction time, so we'll just pick a winner straight up. I'm saying Kerry by 2 points. You?
I'm going to say a bit more exciting and a different prediction. I'm going to say Mayo after extra time by a point.
Very interesting. Guys, prediction time. In the comments, you have people watching along live. Throw in your final predictions. Who do you think is going to win, Kerry or Mayo? Me and Matthew have gone split on that. We'll see what the fans make up the vote as. So, Sean here as well. A couple of comments in about Mayo. So I think the new rules can also play into Mayo's further. They're coming into this game with momentum from, they've been looking like they were dead on relegation. I'm surprised they have a few 2-pointers. Brian says, I would have to say they need to extend the period between teams playing in the league finals. Why is everything so cramped and congested? I do agree. Mayo still have Tommy Conroy to come back, a player that can thrive under the new rules. I do agree with that. Next year, they will be doing away with group stages, hopefully. Brian also says Kerry would welcome the extra game, such a lack of competitiveness in Munster. Mayo have Roscommon and Galway and Connacht much more competitive. Brian also says, I would say both Kevin McStay and Jack O'Connor are really under pressure. I do agree. I think it's kind of all out in their bust for almost both. Liam says Kerry by 2, completely in agreement with my take on it. We're going to move on to the next game then. And that doesn't mean you missed the boat, guys. If you're watching, throw in your predictions for who you think is going to win the Division 1 final. We're going to move on to the Division 2 final. It's the two teams that got relegated from Division 1 last season who have bounced straight back up and are going back up to the Premier Division into Division 1. Monaghan and Roscommon. Two sides that have been superbly impressive throughout this league campaign with the odd little slip up. Monaghan's came on the final day against Down. Roscommon slipped up in their game against Meath and almost slipped up badly against Westmeath on the final day. But Meath's defeat to Louth meant that they weren't punished for their slip up. Now they lock horns in the league final. When they played in the league in the normal season, Roscommon got the upper hand. How do you see this one, just in the general overview?
Well, I have seen both these two teams in the flesh obviously play against Cork, and I will say this, I was impressed more with Roscommon than I was with Monaghan. Having said that, Roscommon have the tendency to slip up like they did against Westmeath and like they did against Meath and like they did against Cavan as well. I just felt like Roscommon were very, very attacking against Cork that night, but there is an argument Cork were absolutely well off it in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. And the thing was, I noticed this about Monaghan, which is going to be very, very intriguing when I watch them again this Saturday in this game in Croke Park. I felt like their midfield wasn't really up to scratch. I think their attack, look at stats and everything, which we'll put up in a sec, have looked absolutely brilliant. And you look at Rory Beckett as well, has been absolutely superb for Monaghan and nearly a Rose Rice under the new rules this year. Ryan Wiley's been exceptional as well. I feel like, though, in midfield in particular, Cork bossed them. And that was, Cork do have big players, obviously, and all that. But I feel like Roscommon might have the upper hand in midfield when it comes to it on Saturday. It should be very interesting to see. And it will be something that we'll be watching closely with Monaghan. Have they kind of worked on that since that game in a skiing against us? But we'll have to see what happens in Croke Park on Saturday.
Yeah, they've lost some big players around the middle. I think that's Monaghan definitely was going to take a little bit of transition. I think anytime that they had a big game over the last few years before he retired, Kieran Hughes would have always been around the middle there as one of their primary ball winners. Carl Gallagher as well, going to Australia. He looked like he was going to be a big player around the middle there. And Darren Hughes is, as awesome as he's been, he is now in his mid-30s. And how much longer can he be, performing at the level that he was during the 2010s? So I do agree with you. I think Roscommon will have the advantage around the middle. Big players that they've got there, like Enda Smith, Eddie Nolan, like they're really strong around there, Roscommon. I would say that it's fairly even on the forwards. I think Roscommon, some of the form of their forwards, man, in this league campaign, will jump in, actually. It's a perfect segue to do it. But players like Diarmuid Murtagh, Kieran Murtagh returning to the team as well, and even some of the shooters that they have off the bench, like Connor Cox, etc., like these new rules seem to suit them down to the ground at the start. Because as we look here, their first game against Down, they racked up 321. And I remember looking at that game, watching the highlights back then after, and just seeing the way that they played such free-flowing football, the way that Diarmuid Murtagh seemed to take to these new rules like a duck to water. The next game, they beat Louth in a very close one. This is when I was kind of picking Louth as candidates to go up. And they beat Louth by 2 points, 117 to 115. Then they beat their upcoming opponents, Monaghan, by 25 points to 214. At this stage, everyone thought Roscommon were going to top the table and go back up to Division 1. Then came their slip up. They lost to Meath on the road. Meath 218, Roscommon 17 points. They then took out that frustration on Cork, 221 to 13 points. Cavan then beat them. I think this was probably surprised me more than the Meath defeat. The fact that they lost to Cavan, that put them in a bit of jeopardy on going up. because then they more or less needed to beat Westmeath on the final day to ensure their promotion. They drew thanks to that last-minute screamer from Kieran Martin from outside the arc. All of a sudden, they're in a position where it was out of their hands. Luckily for them, Louth beat Meath on the last day, and that meant that Meath didn't capitalise on that defeat, and then Meath didn't get promoted. As you can see, for a team that's been promoted, to only have a 3-point score difference between their average scored and average conceded is quite interesting to look at. Just in general, before we move to the scores, isn't that a bit of an interesting stat that for a team that's going up, usually you're expecting to see, 7 or 8 points, especially with the new rules, of a difference in between their average scored and average conceded. Roscommon tend to be in close games.
They do, yeah. Especially against Louth and Monaghan in round 2 and round 3. 2-point victory and 5-point victory. That's not really big margins in the new rules. The only teams where they really beat them down, looking at the results there, were Down and Cork. All the rest, they didn't really. And you look at the Westmeath game as well, and worth pointing out as well, if Darragh McVitie's point went over in Kingspan Breffni against Cork, that last minute point at the hooter, Roscommon wouldn't be in this position on Saturday. They'll be Cavan. So they were close. They were close to missing out, but they didn't in the end, which was a relief, I'd imagine, to every Roscommon fan. But how they let the Westmeath game slip, I know in the end it all worked out, but how they let it slip in the end to Westmeath team that, yes, Westmeath deserved a point. I do agree with that. But they were playing for nothing. And for them to come in and draw that game, in a game Roscommon normally would have to win, then I would see that as a worry from a Roscommon point of view. And especially, as you pointed out, the first 3 games, they were almost flawless. But then, ever since then, they've been on a downward spiral, other than the Cork game. But you might take into consideration as well, the Cork hurlers were at action at 5 o'clock, the Cork footballers were at 7. By then, the atmosphere died, and that might have suited Roscommon a small bit. That might have got all the confidence out of the Cork players. But you look at all the other 3 games. Meath, in the end, 7-point victory for Meath in that game. Cavan, at home, to lose to them by 2 points. And then Westmeath, to draw to them in a game that Roscommon, it wasn't like easy Ozzy. It wasn't like their promotion place was rubber stamped. Roscommon had to win that game. And to draw that game against Westmeath, I think that was poor as well. And I think that's been the most concerning thing about Roscommon. They're kind of downward spiral after the first 3 games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. And then looking at their scores here, Diarmuid Murtagh, as I was saying there, he's been the main man. 135 from him. He's really embraced these new rules. The returning Kieran Murtagh with 222. Enda Smith with 2-9, Conor Hand 14 points, Cian McKeown 1-9, Conor Cox 10 points, Dara Craig 8 points, Ben O'Carroll 1-5. And then looking down through the list, they do have a solid spread of scorers. But you're right there, the way that their form tailed off after the first 3 games, with the exception of the Cork game, was noticeable. Like, you couldn't block that out. And we've got comments flooding in here about Roscommon, so I'll just go through these. Sean says here, Roscommon are known to give the big counties a good game and occasionally nick a result, but struggle and occasionally slip up against counties who are below them or on their level, like the Wexford Hurlers. Brian also says here, for Monaghan to win promotion and been without Conor McManus, who's retired, they're very impressive in their forward line. NIRB says, don't write Roscommon and Monaghan off to do well in the All-Ireland. Going off the past 2 years, Division 2 winners and finalists will dominate in the All-Ireland. Maybe Rossies might win. Sam. Brian also says Roscommon are being strong in the forward line and midfield. Conor Cox and the Murtaghs are brilliant forwards. And then Liam White says, given how sloppy they've been recently, I can see Monaghan taking full advantage. They have danger men in Bannigan, McCarthy, and Rory Beggan. Now, that brings us on nicely to just my kind of general question then. When Roscommon were on form, they looked the business. Like, as I was saying, in that first game against Down, obviously, with hindsight, Down went on to get relegated, but playing really well. And Down beat Monaghan, who were their opponents going in this weekend. Roscommon looked really, really good that first weekend. Then when they beat Monaghan the way that they did, I was thinking, yeah, they're going up, top in the table. I think they might go 7 for 7 even. And they've just the way that they've stumbled, they haven't impressed me as much as previous Roscommon teams that have got promoted. I remember the year that impressed me the most was 2022 when they actually beat Galway then in the league final, and Diarmuid Murtagh scored one of the best goals I've ever seen in Croke Park. That was the year that impressed me the most with them getting promoted from Division 2, because like they didn't stumble in any game in Division 2 that year. I think they were unbeaten. I think they drew against Derry, but won every other game. They were brilliant that year. This time, they had some good wins, but they had some alarming defeats, and I don't put them quite in the front runner package for the All-Ireland. I do get the argument of being underdogs. We've seen the tendency of Division 2 teams to do well over the last few years, but I think with the exception of Armagh, Dublin had more than enough pedigree to prove that they were capable of winning an All-Ireland before that. So yeah, I wouldn't put Roscommon quite in the club of Galway, Donegal, Armagh, Kerry, Dublin just yet. But moving then to Monaghan. Monaghan started off their league campaign with a very impressive win over Cavan, and they backed it up with a very impressive win over Westmeath, 229 to 221. Just look at the score tallies that they're putting up already. Then losing to Roscommon, this weekend's opponents by 25 points to 214 was the setback, but then they responded by beating Cork 316 to 115, Louth by 127 to 121, Meath by 129 to 120, before tripping up on the final day, losing to Down by a point in their own backyard. Down got 24 points, Monaghan got 217, but by that point, Monaghan's fate was pretty much already secured. They were already getting promoted. As you see there, average scored 222 per game. Unbelievable stuff from Monaghan. 13 goals, 154 points scored during this campaign. Conceded 5 goals and 146 points for an average of 120 a game. Their scorers, obviously, Rory Beggan. I mean, what other goalkeeper would be up here? 31 points for him. Micheál Bannigan with 223, Conor McCarthy 219, David Garland 313, Jack McCarran 214, Stephen O'Hanlon 19, Stephen Mooney 10 points. As you can see there, a really, really healthy spread of scorers for Monaghan. Their form, apart from the slip up where obviously they lost to Roscommon, crucially, Down on the final day, you can make your arguments that maybe they kind of knew that they were already going up, but in every other game, man, what they've been putting up score-wise has been sensational.
Has been. And you look at the last game against Down as well, they only lost by a point, and that was a Down team that was going to be up for it in terms of trying to stay up as well. So that needs to be taken into consideration as well. In the first 6 games, what they needed to do, they did. In all fairness to Monaghan, they were up against a Meath team in Partalton and Navan actually in round 6, and everybody thought Meath were going to win this game because Meath have shown a bit of form with the likes of Jordan Morris in the team and Rory Kinsella and Jack Flynn and all these great players, and they seem to be going into form. Monaghan blew them right out of the water in the first half. Blew any notion of a shock, and you have to take your hat off them for that as well. And you could argue maybe bad teams would have a goalkeeper as number 1, but you look at the scores behind Rory Beggan. Micheál Bannigan, Conor McCarthy, David Garland, Jack McCarran, Stephen O'Hanlon, Stephen Mooney, all 10 points or above.
Yeah.
And that is an incredible spread of scores, you have to say there. That's 7 players, or is 7 players? Yeah, 7 players on 10 points or above in a league campaign after 7 games, which is really, really impressive. And you look at the players above 20 points or above, there's 5 of them. That's even more impressive. Like McCarran's there, Garland at 3 goals and 13 points, Conor McCarthy still doing his stuff. Micheál Bannigan named as captain this year on the Monaghan team, and he's leading by example. He's doing absolutely brilliantly. Rory Beggan with 31 points as well. And you have other players really stepping up down the list as well, like the likes of Ryan Wiley, Desi Ward, Ryan McAdespy, Ryan O'Toole, Barry McBennett, all stepping across the scoreboard as well, Micheál McCarville as well. You have players that are stepping up as well, which is a very, very positive thing for Monaghan. And as one of the comments said earlier, Conor McManus gone. Kieran Hughes gone over the last 2 seasons. Darren Hughes, aging. To find new players, you have to give Monaghan a lot of credit. And I think Monaghan fans will be absolutely sick of me saying this, but it's the truth. The population of Monaghan compared to every other county across the country is really, really small. For them to keep producing players and players and players each and every season is a credit to themselves. And it should be kind of the standard bare kind of county that every side looks to and says, look, they're doing it with kind of limited resources. We can do it as well. You know, it's an exceptional thing to have from a Monaghan point of view as well, because you see with many other counties that kind of punch above their weight over the last few seasons. Remember the Limerick team with John Galvin, remember the Wexford team that reached the All-Ireland semi-final with kind of limited resources compared to the hurlers, and they went all the way down to Division 4, which we'll talk about in a second with Limerick and Wexford, coincidentally. But Monaghan have kind of stayed at kind of the same level. A Division 1 team or high level Division 2 team. And you have to give them a lot of credit for that. They haven't slipped their standards, even with the change of coaches here with Gabriel Bannigan coming in. And I have to give Monaghan a lot of credit over this. And they've probably been more consistent in Roscommon in this league campaign as well. And for once in this league campaign, I actually think Monaghan will go on and win this game against Roscommon on Saturday. I just think they've been more consistent. I think their attack has been lethal. The only issue I'd have is probably the midfield, but that could improve in time once the championship kicks in. I feel like this Monaghan team will go on and win this trophy, this Division 2 trophy on Saturday against Roscommon. I just feel like they've been more consistent and have been more threatening in terms of attack as well. 222 in an average to score after 7 games is a really, really good tally. I think that will translate on Saturday too.
Yeah, no, there's certainly, like, their form going forward has just been absolutely unbelievable. And then Roscommon have looked a bit vulnerable in their last 2 games. Obviously, we've seen in this league campaign the level that they're capable of getting to, like the Down game, like the Cork game. But when you saw how Westmeath put them to the pin of their collars, I think in a wide open Croke Park, as you mentioned there, with a Monaghan side that have averaged 222 over their 7 games, which is crazy, I would fancy Monaghan to win this one as well. So not by much, but I'd say Monaghan maybe by 4. Then how important it is as well. I think it's vital as well for Monaghan and Roscommon to bounce straight back. Go straight back up to Division 1, because the longer you stay down in the division you're in, the more your level starts to eventually drop to that level, and the harder it is then to accumulate to a Division 1 when you eventually get promoted. Like, we've seen it with Meath, we've seen it with Cork, that when they were established Division 1 teams, once they went down and missed the boat initially to go back up, sometimes you can kind of stagnate in the division that you are in. And then if you do get up like me did in 2019, for example, their level was nowhere near being able to compete at Division 1. And they ended up losing every game and going back down to Division 2. So, yeah, it's massively important for both Monaghan and Roscommon that they get right back up straight away. Gavin has a great question here. Gavin O'Reilly with a superb question. He says, what are your thoughts on scrapping the Division 1 final, but keeping 2 to 4, but make them playoff finals between 2nd and 3rd, where the winner is promoted on the day, so first place is already up? So this year, it would be, for example, Roscommon versus Meath, Offaly versus Clare, and Limerick versus Wicklow. Some of those Roscommon players have 4, 5 Division 2 cups. They might be more hungry for silverware in Monaghan. Good point there, Gavin, as well. Matthew, what do you think about that? If Monaghan were already gone up, if Kildare were already gone up, and these silverware kind of, it's not something where your fate is already sealed. It's an interesting one to think about. Would you be in favour of it? Probably not. I'd probably prefer to leave it the way it is.
I'd prefer to leave it the way it is as well, especially with the condensed calendar that we have at the moment. Yeah. We don't want more games. So yeah, yeah, exactly. But maybe you could change maybe the structure in terms of points in the league. In terms of,
well, I'd be in favour of doing it 3 points for a win.
Would you?
Oh yeah, because I think that incentivizes teams more to go and get the win. And the way that rugby, for example, does the bonus point if you score over a certain amount, I think we should look at that too. If you score over 320, you get an extra point.
Another thing as well, another thing as well that I'd love to for it to come in as well is if the head-to-head, if there's 3 teams level on points, then head-to-head goes down to only those 3 sides play against each other. Okay. Because you had a situation in Division 2 with to a lesser extent, you had Cork, Meath, and Cavan all on 8 points. Cork actually finished 5th, despite beating Cavan and Meath under these rules I'm proposing. Cork would actually finish 3rd. But crucially of all, in Division 3, Clare, Kildare, and Offaly all finished on 10 points. under my proposal there, Clare would have actually topped Division 3. So
I would have been right.
yeah. But Kildare wouldn't have gone up. Kildare would have
Crazy.
finished third. So it does incentivize kind of beating teams around you too. So,
Yeah.
and I think it's more fair as well. I think I would change that.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a good shout. So we're in agreement there on Monaghan to beat Roscommon this weekend in Division 2, taking us on nicely then to Division 3. Kildare versus Offaly, an all-Leinster affair in the Division 3 football final. This one will be an interesting one. Obviously, you've got two teams on the up. Kildare, a lot of people would have looked at Kildare in Division 3 and thought they should have never been there. They started off really impressively. A lot of people thought, okay, Kildare are back to business. And then out of nowhere, they stumbled and fell. And they left themselves in a position where all of a sudden it wasn't looking 100% that they were going to go up. They did the job on the final day against Antrim, securing their spot in the promotion places. Offaly lost on the final day to Clare, giving up top spot, but they're gone up anyway. Which one have you been more impressed by?
I'd have to say Offaly. I have to say,
Me too.
I do think Kildare, you were kind of expected that Kildare would go up. And I feel like with Offaly, like I predicted them, I think you predicted them very, very low, Seamus.
I said
Yeah,
fifth, I think.
I said fourth, but like we were still kind of mid-table with Offaly. But a lot of people actually predicted them to go down, to get
Yeah.
relegated. So for them to produce the performances that they have done, especially after losing, I think by 12 points last year to London in the Tailteann Cup, losing comprehensively to Limerick in the Tailteann Cup as well, nearing relegation down to Division 4, there was always going to be a rebuild under Mickey Hart. But what I will say, well, Mickey Hart and Declan Kelly, just to put it that way, but they have brought in a lot of the under-20s that won the All-Ireland. I noticed in the team the other day, actually, I was looking at the team sheet, Aaron Keelan is actually not on the scores list, but I noticed him at full forward in one of the teams, along with the likes of Cormac Egan, Jack Brynett, Keith O'Neill, John Furlong. These sorts of players won under-20 titles with Offaly. And now they're being brought into this team as well, alongside the likes of Dylan Hyland, who's their top scorer at the moment, and Shane Tierney, Paddy Dunnigan, who's been really, really good in goal as well. I think there's a nice blend in this Offaly team at the moment. Who would want the trophy more? I'm not entirely sure. There's not going to be. It's not like last year with Westmeath and Down. There's not going to be Sam Maguire on the line, which is you won't have that kind of an angle, which is quite interesting as well. Like it's an interesting one. I do think Offaly probably don't have a chance really in getting into the Sam Maguire because they're just on the Leinster side of the draw, the same side as Dublin. I don't think they're, with the greatest respect, obviously, I don't think Offaly are going to beat Dublin. They might beat me in the quarter. They could do that, but I don't think they'll beat Dublin in the semi-final afterwards. Whereas Kildare, it's in their own hands in Leinster. That's a crucial kind of period for them. They have, I think, a quarter-final in Leinster, and then they have a semi-final, and then they're on the same side as Louth and Westmeath, along with also Wexford and Laois is there on that side as well. And the winners of that side of the Leinster draw actually go into the Sam Maguire Cup automatically. So would Kildare have their eyes fixated on that rather than this final?
Mm-hmm.
It's quite interesting kind of dynamic. But to answer your question on who have been most impressive, I think it's Offaly.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think that there's a tiny bit involved in that I expected Kildare to be here, but didn't expect Offaly to be here. So Offaly have kind of surprised me, whereas Kildare are exactly where I thought that they should be when this league started off. So I think that needs to be taken into account as well. Kildare have been good in their games, but they have been in a position that they probably should have never ended up in given the talent that they have. So I think going into this game on Sunday, obviously now that they've switched and they're doing 4-2 and 3-1, I think that there'll be more pressure on Kildare to win this game than Offaly. I think Kildare are kind of, given that they're in a division and them getting relegated last year was such a story and everybody couldn't believe that they were down there, a lot of people would expect them to slam dunk this division. Like, get all the wins that you should get and win the title and go back up. Offaly have already punctured their balloon this season, so Offaly won't fear them in the slightest. We have a few comments in here, guys. First one from Brian talking about the Division 2 final. He says Monaghan have very impressive score average and putting up very high scores. Monaghan to edge. Liam here with a great stat. He says neither of us have ever won a Division 3 title. So that would be an interesting one playing on the minds this weekend. Gavin here says, I remember 4 years ago, a lot of the Offaly under 20 players played Roscommon in 2021. I think that playing in that final experience might help Offaly on Sunday. Brian also says Kildare need to get to a Leinster football final to play in the group phases. The good thing for them is they're on the other side of the draw to Dublin. And then Gavin says here, I remember in 2022, if Kildare bet Mayo, they would have been in Division 1 final. Now they're in the Division 3 final. Unbelievable. Brian says you have Louth, Laois and Kildare, I'm guessing, on the same side. Kildare are under massive pressure. I would agree with that. So jumping then into your stats on these two teams, we have, of course, Kildare started off beating Fermanagh 224 to 112, Sligo 116 to 13 points, Leitrim 127 to 7 points, Laois 21 points to 9. All seems to be swimming along smoothly. And then back-to-back defeats to Clare and to Offaly all of a sudden had them in a position where I was a little bit worried for them, but they did the job on the final day, beating Antrim by 126 to 115. Their average scored is 120 per game. Their average conceded is 112 per game. They have been impressive. But crucially, against the two most difficult tests that, in my opinion, they could have faced in this division, they've lost on both occasions. Their top scorer is then Alex Byrne at 128, Dara Curran with 216, Niall Kelly with 112, Ryan Sinky 111. They have a lot of threats, and what you'll notice is they're sent from Colm Dalton with 11 points there, up at number 5, all the way down to Brian McLaughlin at number 9 with 7. There's not a lot, they have a very, very even spread of scoring around their team. But how kind of important is that a stat to note, that Offaly and Clare are the two most difficult tests, with hindsight now, that Kildare could have faced in this division, and they've lost them both. So am I looking at this in a kind of similar way that I looked at the Tailteann Cup last year, that Kildare blew away the easy competition in front of them in the Tailteann Cup, and the minute they ran into a stubborn Laois team, they fell? Could we see something like that again repeating in this league final?
I think if you were to see it on Sunday, I think it would be a worrying thing for Brian Flanagan, kind of he wants to set a precedent in kind of beating, first of all, a decent enough team, which Offaly are at this stage. I think Kildare need to beat these sides in terms of trying to get to where they want to be, where they need to be. And I think, look, Brian Flanagan's an excellent coach. I still have belief in him that he will turn the ship around for Kildare. It may take a bit of time, but like, they have an even spread of scores, as you mentioned there. There is a lot of players kind of contributing there as well. Like, even looking below the likes of Brian McLaughlin, you have Jimmy Hyland's at 2 points, one for free as well. Like, he's still come back into the team. He's taking slowly but surely, but it looks at things as well. Paddy McDermott from Naas, Ryan Houlihan, Didier Cardinay, the other goalkeeper. I think he's sub goalkeeper. He might start as well. Like, they have some decent enough scores in this team, Kildare, as well, and they have been blowing teams away like they have been doing in the Tailteann Cup last season. That's the issue, as you mentioned there. Like, if they come up against a stubborn test like a Laois, like a Clare, like against an Offaly, they fold. And especially if they're not at home either. Like, they were Tullamore last year against Laois, they were at Ennis against Clare, and they were Tullamore again against Offaly. Do you see kind of a similar trend here? So maybe to an extent, in a funny way, would Croke Park actually suit Kildare? Or then again, as the comment said there, would it suit Offaly more, because their players are used to winning in Croke Park, obviously, with the under-20 success, and the speedy players that they do have. This is what makes this game so intriguing as well, in its own right. And the fact that Liam said none of these sides have won a Division 3 title. It's going to be very interesting to see who actually goes on and win this Division 3 final, because there's a lot of kind of question marks over both sides going into this game.
Yeah, no, there's big question marks over them. John McGarry here says Monaghan are the gift that keeps on giving. I like others thought that a few quiet years are ahead of us, but no, back in Division 1 next year and a national title to play for on the Farney. Yes, you love to see it, John. I think Monaghan are probably pound for pound most people's second team. I mean, they're a joy to watch. Liam White here says, I'm hopeful for Sunday. It will be tough to beat the same side twice, especially in a matter of weeks, but I feel our lads will be mad hungry to win a national title considering how we fared against Derry in 2021. And then Gavin, question here, lads, are both of these going to be in the Tailteann Cup or just the loser? I think
I don't look, even Gavin, it doesn't matter this game because Offaly need to beat both Meath and Dublin to get into the Sam Maguire. Kildare just need to get out their side of the draw in the Leinster Championship, which includes Louth, Wexford, Laois and Westmeath.
Which they could do. Like, they definitely could do that. Going through Offaly then, before we give our prediction, obviously beating Sligo on the opening day was a result that made everybody sit up and take notice, not just for Offaly's win, but for Sligo's defeat. Then beating Laois 219 to 117, and then Antrim 419 to 15 points, and Fermanagh 3-6 to 113. Everybody by that point had well and truly, sorry, Fermanagh beating Offaly, but everybody before the Fermanagh game had well and truly sat up and taken notice of Offaly. The stumble against Fermanagh was paid up by beating Leitrim then 113 to 19, and more than repaid by then beating Kildare 217 to 17 points. Slipping up on the final day to Clare meant little because they still went up, an average scored of 215 a game and an average conceded of 113 a game. Their key players, obviously players like Dylan Hyland 227, Keith O'Neill with 221 stand out. Shane Tierney 1-9, Paddy Dunnigan with 1-7, who's been flying it from goal, and Jack Bryan with 9 points. Beyond that, it falls down a little bit. Dylan Hyland and Keith O'Neill clearly are their key two threats. We've highlighted as well, there's a lot of players around this Offaly team, like Nigel Dunn, like Jack Bryant, that have the capability to explode into a game like this. Kildare have been a little bit more consistent in terms of their scoring power. Prediction time. I'm very sorry, Liam, but I'm going with Kildare to take this one. I'm saying by about 4 points. What do you feel?
This is a very, very tough one to call. I'm going to say, and I'm so sorry about this, Liam, I'm going to edge it to Kildare as well by 2. It's going to be very, very tough. But I feel like Offaly will do themselves proud of Croke Park, especially after what Liam mentioned there in 2021. Got a bit of a beating off Derry, and they want to kind of go well in this Division 3 final. I think this will be closer, way closer than that day. But I just feel like Kildare would want to stop their authority, want to make a statement. Because if they don't make a statement before the Leinster Championship, it is kind of a concern, really.
Yeah, no, I agree. Liam White here says, Seamus, you're dead to me. You too, Matthew. We apologise, Liam. Brian here says, then both Offaly and Kildare need to reach the Leinster final in order to play in the All-Ireland phase. Now, so we've agreed on the 2 games previous. We disagreed on the Division 1 final, which I think, to be fair, Matthew, is rare. I feel like when it comes to GAA, the two of us probably share half a brain cell each to make the full brain cell. But we're going to move then to the Division 4 final and see if the trend continues. Will we agree on more football finals or disagree on the equal number? Division 4's final, Wexford against Limerick. I actually think we're going to agree on this one. I'd be surprised if we don't. Wexford have had the slam dunk so far, 7 wins out of 7. They're coming into this league final against Limerick, who are led, by a really, really solid crop of players that they have there, including obviously James McNaughton, who scored that absolutely ridiculous tally on the final week, winning player of the week. Can Limerick stop Wexford?
Potentially. There was always a potential, obviously. And you mentioned James Naughton there, and obviously Emmett Richter, Ian Corbett still around the team as well. Limerick do have players, but I think Wexford look in serious fettle at the moment. They look like they're steamrolling into this win more so as well. And if they can win this game, I think that'll give them the confidence, especially going to that Leinster side of the draw, because like Kildare, like Louth, like Westmeath, like Laois, I do feel like Wexford would take it a realistic opportunity to get to a Leinster final. But all those sides are probably above Wexford, they are above Wexford in the IH League anyway, but they're beatable. And I feel like Wexford might have the confidence, if they go on and beat Limerick here, to go on and say, we go on and beat these sides. So I think Wexford will have the win on their minds, especially after the barren years that they have had in Division 4. And it'll be a tough one for Wexford, but I think they will do enough to get over the line.
Yeah, no, I personally think they will as well. And I'm not even going to hide this. I grew up in Wexford in my summers where I spent in Wexford, so I definitely want them to win this game. We're going to look at the results so far. Beating London 224-2-6. Limerick, crucially, 17 points to 13. Carlow by 212 to 9. Waterford by 217 to 11. Wicklow by 20 points to 12. That ensured their promotion. Then they beat Tip 113 to 112 and smashed Longford away from home 218 to 110. They scored an average of 118 per game, and incredibly, given the new rules, they've only conceded an average of 1-9 per game. That's extraordinary with the new rules and the 2-point arc and everything like that. Whereas players like Shane Pettit that are in the photo there, he's been extraordinary. Some of the 2-pointer he kicked against Wicklow, he kicked 2 gorgeous ones. He's got 8 points. Park Hughes at 115, Sean Nolan 16 points, Sean Ryan 4-4, Mark Rossler 111. Massive shout out to Ben Brosnan, 11 points from him, still doing the business. He was one of my favourite players around 2011, 2012 when I was only 11 years old. He's still doing the business now. Unbelievable stuff. Switching then to Limerick, their route to the final. They drew at Longford on the opening day before losing to Wexford, but since then they have been really, really good. Beating London 116 to 11, Carlow 117 to 13, Tipperary by 221 to 38. Wicklow, they drew with them, but then smashed Waterford on the last day to ensure their place in this final. They've scored an average of 119 per game and conceded an average of 114 per game. Their scorers, James Naughton, not surprised at all, 548 from him. He has been absolutely incredible. Emmett Richter with 217, Peter Nash with 2-9. And from there, their scorers does drop down. Big shout, though, of course, to Josh Ryan from goal and Ian Corbett from the backs. This game, I think if you're to pick any of them, I think Limerick are probably the best equipped to stop the Wexford train. I don't think they can. I think Wexford will win. But do you think there's any way Limerick can stop them? How do you stop them?
They need to get James Naughton and Emmett Richter in the game.
Yeah.
Potentially Peter Nash as well. They need to get those guys in the game. But looking at those stats as well, and going back to it, and even look at the top scorers list in Division 4, someone pointed this out to me. Wexford have been the standard bearers of Division 4, yet they don't have any top 10 player in the overall list, and they have only one Sean Ryan in the top 10 list from play.
Mm-hmm.
So that just shows me that they have a huge spread of scores across the team. Whereas Limerick are kind of reliant on particularly Naughton and Richter. And I feel like if Wexford stop them too, they'll go a long way to win the game. I feel like Wexford will do enough to get over the line and win this game. Limerick, maybe their running game might be good. I do think Limerick are kind of a running team. Once they run at you, they have power, they have pace. They can hurt you. But I think they need to use that and obviously get knocked and Richter into the game. But I feel like that won't be enough even. I just feel like this Wexford team looks too good at the moment. But just on a side note, Seamus, it's great to see kind of two historically kind of hurling counties in Limerick and Wexford kind of have their footballers have their time to shine this weekend. Isn't that great? Like, it really is.
Especially in a national final in Croke Park. It's an unbelievable opportunity for everybody involved. Gavin here says, I would feel sickened for Wexford if they lose this game, given they've won the previous 7. Brian is talking about Division 3's final here, but he says this is a very hard game to call. Kildare to edge a very close game, better spread of scores. So Brian, you're dead to Liam White as well, if that's the way that we're doing things today. Brian also says Wexford have been sensational. They've steamrolled teams. James McNaughton from Limerick is a serious player. And then about me, I'm more of a Wexford man than a Dub. I would probably agree with that. I think another layer to that is the fact that I couldn't give a shit about the Premier League, and everybody in Dublin seems to be absolutely bet into it every weekend, and no matter what pub you go into in Dublin. We are going to then move on from this. So we agree that Wexford are going to get over the line. We're switching to the small ball now, and we're going to preview the Allianz Hurling League Division 2 final between Down and Kildare. This one is taking place in Inniskeen. Down and Kildare, 2 teams that have earned their shot now to go up and compete at 1B next year, where they're going to get to play against the likes of Clare, Wexford, Dublin. Massive year ahead of these teams. They lock horns in a national final, silverware on the line. Your overview on this game?
Yeah, I think first of all, it's great that these sides are getting the opportunity to play against Clare, particularly the likes of Dublin and all the counties as well, all the bigger counties. And for Down in particular, to play against the likes of Antrim, who would be
That would
considered
be a
probably the
tasty.
top dogs. That
That
would
would be a
be a
tasty
tasty
one.
game. Yeah, it really would next season. But for this final, I think for these two sides, they're probably between Christy Ring and Joe McDonough, if you're
Mhm.
saying it realistically, these two sides. So I think both sides will be gunning for this trophy. Not only to win a trophy and get it on the board, but just to give them confidence go into the Joe McDonough campaign where you have the likes of, yes, Kerry haven't been themselves this season, but like Dow and Kildare both beat Kerry and both beat them pretty well. Dow did, but like Dow had to go down to Tralee and get a brilliant result on that day, obviously. But Kerry are in the Joe McDonough this year, Laois, Carlow, Westmeath. So it would give them a lot of confidence if whoever wins this final, no doubt about it. But I'm sure we'll throw up the scores and the journeys to the final there as well. But for Dow, there's a lot of scores there. There's a lot of brilliant tallies in this Division 2 campaign. For Kildare, they're under Brian Dowling, the former Kilkenny Camogie manager, actually. So they seem to be going well at club level, obviously, with Naas. They're very, very competitive in the club championship. In Leinster in particular, they've put it up to the likes of Ballyhale Shamrocks over the last few seasons. They're now bringing the big dogs in terms of managers, and they seem to be saying that this could be something serious that we can go along as a team with Kildare. So it should be interesting to see who wins this final. And yeah, it'd be interesting to see who wins and gets a bit of confidence in getting some silverware before the Joe McDonough campaign.
Certainly. And then we're going to go same way that we do it with the football, team by team. I'm going to highlight their results, their scorers, and then we're going to talk about the strengths and weaknesses that we've seen in both of those teams. We're looking here at Kildare first. So obviously they started off by losing to Down. Obviously that's crucial going into this final. Down 219, Kildare 22 points, but they bounced back, holding Kerry and Derry to 17 points, each while putting up 228 and 225 respectively. Then they beat Donegal 321 to 115, Tyrone 234 to 8 points, and then Meath 124 to 114. They've scored an average of 225 a game and conceded an average of 114 a game. And this is just a bit of a trend that I noticed with Kildare. Whenever they seem to win, they seem to batter teams. Like they always, once it's like they're a real flair, real confidence team that once they get the bit between their teeth and they know that they have a team, they can really put the beating on them properly. And some of the forwards that they have here, as you can see, David Qualter with 157, Jack Sheridan with 310, James Burke 16 points, Dara Melville with 210, James Dolan 17, Paul Dolan 9 points. And then you can see as it goes down there, a wide spread of scorers around their team. Rian Bourne as well as another player that I've been very, very impressed with throughout this league campaign. For Kildare, what are the main things you've noticed strengths-wise that have made an impression on you in this league campaign?
The fact really that they've only conceded 4 goals in 6 games, and they've only conceded 2 goals in their last 2 goals in their last 5 games. Ever since the Down game, they conceded 2 goals in that game, but they've only conceded a goal to Donegal. To be honest, Kildare were over the hills and far away that one, and Meath, which was actually a promotion kind of semi-final in its own right, because if Meath actually won that game, they would have played Down this weekend in the Division 2 final. So yeah, you could kind of excuse it, conceding a goal in that kind of a game. And Jack Regan in that game, just on the side note, scored 110 out of Meath's 114, which probably just showed that they were very, very over-reliant on him. But yeah, for me, Kildare's defence has looked really good. Their attack has looked really good. I think it on a negative spin, the fact that they lost the Down, I'm sure we'll get out to Down in the second now, but like Kildare losing the Down maybe kind of puts them on the back foot a small bit. And the fact that Kildare have been bouncing around really. The Joe McDonough Cup, Christy Ring, Joe McDonough Cup, Christy Ring. They want to make the breakthrough this season. Not obviously to go straight up to Liam McCarthy. They want to kind of consolidate themselves as a Joe McDonough team. And I think if they win this trophy at Saturday, I do think that would be the consolidation kind of block that they could work on in terms of getting Joe McDonough survival this year.
Yeah, no, I do agree. I think the main thing I've noticed just is their spread of scores. Jack Sheridan, James Burke are the two that really impressed me, especially when I saw them play against Ballyhale, because that's elite competition that you can go up against the players that Ballyhale have in defence, like Richie Reid, Joey Holden, Evan Shefflin, Derek Corcoran, and to see those two lads strut their stuff against Ballyhale was hugely, hugely impressive. This game, it'd be very interesting to see in terms of the mentality, because as I said, when Kildare win, they tend to blow teams away, but Down bet them in the first game, and that brings a different challenge. That's a team that you're probably not going to blow them away. So this is more of a tight game. This is more about grit, determination, finding a way to win, not just blowing a team away. And that's probably more impressive when you balance it all out. Gavin has a great question here, actually. He says, should the hurling finals be in Croke Park? Do you think maybe 1A, 1B on one day and then 2, 3 and 4 on another day? What would you think? Because the 1A and B finals aren't in Croke Park, obviously down in Porky Creve.
Yeah.
Do you think maybe 2, 3 and 4 should be in the one venue type thing?
I think so. It doesn't necessarily have to be Croke Park, but I think it would give kind of a more attention to those games. I do think as well, just the venues for these finals are very, very weird. Division 2 in particular is on in Grattan Park and Inniskeen, which is, let's be honest, that's Monaghan's second ground.
Yeah.
And then you have finals in, I think there was one final that I seen was in a venue that I didn't even know was a venue in Division 4, I think it was. Division 3 as well. And the fact it's not being streamed as well on Clubboard all day, it's probably a bit of a disrespect to those counties involved, because all sides want to win those finals. There's no doubt about it. And I think honestly that would be a kind of bonanza day of hurling if you had like a triple header in, say, I don't know, Tullamore, Navan, those kind of grounds, which are decent enough in fairness in terms of capacity. Possibly even Croke Park if it is free. Obviously it's not free this weekend, obviously with the football, but you could have these finals probably next weekend, which makes it even more baffling because it kind of goes under the radar compared to the football in many ways. So I think you could have kind of manoeuvred it to have, let's say, the Division 1A and 1B doubleheader as normal on Saturday, and then you can have these 3 finals on the Sunday. Or sorry, the Division 1A and 1B are present. Division 1A and 1B is on the Sunday. You could have had the Division 2 to 4 finals as a triple header in Croke Park next Saturday evening. And that probably would have garnered more eyes to it. So you could have done it that way, but I feel like the venues announced for these finals were a bit, I would say, unusual. It's obviously not unusual for those counties because unfortunately that is the way that the hurling is going in those smaller counties at this present moment in time. But I feel like they should be kind of respected more in terms of the league finals and given that they're day out in the sun in terms of a final in Croke Park. In terms of like London and Mayo Division 3 is in a league final. Like when are they going to get their day out in the sun other than obviously Nicky Rackard or Larry Marr final again? So I feel like they deserve a day out in the sun.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think maybe playing them all just in the one ground, I wouldn't even necessarily be that against Inniskeen, but just making a bit of a festival day out of it where if you had the 3 finals all kind of back to back, I feel like that would be a cool way to do it. Brian says here, it's great to see Division 1A/B of the hurling finals sold out. Absolutely. And in record time as well. Gavin also says, yeah, maybe even a better quality ground for each game, like Breffni Park, Tullamore, or the Hyde. There would be another interesting one to throw into the mix as well. So yeah, I pick Kildare to win this one, probably. What are you picking or thinking?
I'm thinking Down, Seamus, and you haven't put up their scores at the road to the final yet. But
Apologies. God damn. Late night. Down here. Beating Kildare, obviously, on the opening day, 219 to 22 points. Derry, then they beat them 226 to 13. Donegal beating them by 9 points. Stop the lights. Poor Tyrone, 926 to Tyrone's 13 points. I forgot I was going to have to read out that score. Kerry, they beat them 28 points to 123 before beating Meath, or what score did that finish?
They lost to Meath.
Quick maths. Losing to Meath 230 to 421 in one of the games of that weekend. They've scored an average of 324 per game and conceded an average of 118 a game. Wow. The scores that they put up there are sensational. And looking at the scorers, Tom McGrattan with 251, Pierce Og McCrickard with 220, Tim Prenter with 3.8, Chris Egan 4.5, Ronan Beattie 2.5, Donald Hughes 2.5, Paul Sheehan 10 points, Dahi Sands 1.3, and as you see, moving down the scores there, very widespread at it. There's no doubt they have a forward line that can definitely compete with the flair that Kildare can put up, and conceding less on average as well than the Lily Whites do. Yeah, I'm not as confident in my prediction after reading the scores, reminding myself what they've been putting up. But I'll stick with it. I'll say Kildare will win. Now you tell me why they won't.
I feel like, looking at the scores anyway, Down didn't concede a goal in their first 4 games, including against Kildare, which is a very, very good thing to have, and especially against the Donegal team that did beat Kerry this league campaign and were quite competitive. To beat them by 9 points was impressive, even though Kildare beat them by 12. So, like, I think what's the only thing that's certain in this is probably you have 2 deserved finalists in Division 2. But you look at Down, like, the first 4 games didn't concede a goal. They only conceded a goal to Kerry round 5, and that game was in Tralee, and Kerry were always going to kind of stake a claim at home. But for Down to go down to Tralee and win that game, I know it was only by 2 points, but it probably wasn't the most impressive on paper. But in terms of the rubrics around it, that was impressive. To win a game down to Tralee by 2 points, a long journey like that, and fair play to Down for that. The game against Meath, context probably needed. They were already promoted by that point, so you might not read too much into it because he did 2 goals in that game. But scoring 9 goals against Tyrone, yes, Tyrone did get a bit of a hammering off Kildare and Down. They probably just weren't ready for Division 2. It is all right. They're probably just a Division 3 team at this present moment in time. That's just an unfortunate thing to say, but it's just the reality, unfortunately, for that Tyrone team at this present moment in time. But still, Down have to beat what's in front of them. Score 9 goals in 1 game is exceptional. You can't play it in any other night. That is really, really good from the Down point of view. And to score 26 points in addition to that is very, very good as well. My reasoning is, I think Down have been, look at scores and everything, I do think Down have been more consistent, and their defence has been good, their attack has been good, and I feel like their form in general has been very, very good this campaign. So I feel like if you were to ask me at the start of this year, I probably would have said Kildare. I probably would agree with you. But the fact I look at the scores there, look at the scores and everything like that, I can't back against Down. Look at how they performed in this league campaign so far.
Yeah, you've sold me. I'm going to jump ship. I'm going to jump ship over to the downside. And I cannot wait to see them go against Antrim next season. I think that will be fireworks, just to see the 2 top hurling counties in Ulster going head to head. I mean, they're the 2 kind of Ulster hurling royalty, I would say. Like, do you look at the 80s and 90s, like it was Down and Antrim that were getting through to play against Tip, Galway, Kilkenny in the All-Ireland hurling.
A close third as well, Seamus, possibly Derry in terms of their
Derry, yeah, Derry
success.
would be a close third for sure.
Yeah.
Like you look at iconic footballers that they had that were, also made their trade in hurling. Players like Tony Scullion, that he is just as passionate about hurling as he is about football. Also, yeah, Chrissy McCaig, Shane McGuigan, Brendan Rodgers. We'll move on then to the Division 3 final. London against Mayo in Hawkfield. Again, interesting venue. What are you thinking for this one?
Yeah, I think London look like serious favourites for this one. They've won, I think, every game in this Division 3 campaign, and their scores against Armagh actually weren't available. So I did it up until round 6 for London. So one of their games is missing. But David Devine has 4 goals to 26 points. Sean Glynn has 14 points. Owen Shield has 10 points as well. So very good scoring from a London point of view. As for Mayo, though, they do have scores in this team that are very, very good players. The likes of Liam Lavin with 4 goals to 25 points. Shane Boland, 2 goals to 29. Cormac Phillips had 4 goals and 22 points. Joseph Burke had 2 goals and 6. Added on to it as well, Tureen, the Mayo champions, played against Monaleen from Limerick in the intermediate All-Ireland final a few years ago, and were very, very competitive against them. And that's a Monaleen team that have the likes of Shane O'Brien in that Shane O'Brien, Donegal Dalek in that team. And they look to be a very, very good, decent enough club side in Limerick, and Tureen nearly beat them. So, like Mayo, and that's without the likes of Mayo don't have Fergal Boland for this league campaign. And Fergal Boland, another footballer who's an excellent hurler. It's unfortunate the way he is a very good footballer, so obviously he's going to go down the route of football. Yeah, but the likes of exactly, yeah. But yeah, exactly. But you have the likes of Liam Lavin, Shane Boland, Cormac Phillips, Joseph Burke there. London have been impressive in this Division 3 campaign, winning nearly every game, or every game if that. But I feel like looking at Mayo scores there, the likes of Lavin, Bowl and Phillips in particular, I think Mayo will have enough to win this final. I'm going to go Mayo by about 3 or 4 points.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Mayo as well. I've been impressed with London, the strides that they've made. I listened to their manager's interview there recently. I think it was with RTE. They've been impressed with the strides that they've made, but ultimately I think Mayo are just a little bit ahead of them. And I'm going to go with them to get over the line. Bringing us on then to our Division 4 final, Fermanagh against Louth in Trua. Fermanagh, on one hand, obviously some big names in their team over the last few years. The Luca McCuskers, well, Louth had the likes of Peter Fortune. It's in Trua, again, interesting, unique venue. Who are you thinking comes out on top in this?
Interesting, actually, from a Fermanagh point of view. Look at the scores and look at match reports and everything like that. I don't actually think Luca McCusker's playing this year. I might be wrong on this. I don't think he is, because I looked at the scores there. He's not in the list. Unless he's played more of a supporting cast role. He isn't contributing as much. John Duffy's up there anyway with a high tally. Danny McHugh was up there as well, and Sean Corrigan. There are some very good players in this Fermanagh team, and they have been decent enough in this league campaign. As for Louth, though, like, they played 6 games, 11 points. Like, they've been unbeaten in all their games. They've won 5 and drawn 1. They've been really, really good, Louth. And in terms of their scores, I actually have all of them here. Darren Gagan has a total of 55 points in 6 games, which is very, very good. In fairness, that's 14 from play as well. Conor Murphy's 13 points. Peter Fortune, as you mentioned there, Seamus, he's got 2 goals and 6 points. Sean Flynn has 11 points. Mark Gahan with 10 points as well. Adam Plunkett is 8 points. Fermanagh, probably, they won the Lord Bar last year, Fermanagh, and they have impressed me over the last few seasons. But I like to look at this Louth teams in terms of results, in terms of scores this season. So I'm going to tip it to Louth this one. I think Louth will win this one by about, again, tight margin in hurling terms. I'm going to go 3 or 4 point victory for Louth.
Yeah, no, I do like the way that Louth have been progressing. Peter Fortune is probably a player that I really, really like, to be honest. Yeah, I'll go with the wee county to get a bit of league success. I did predict them to get success in the football. It didn't pan out to be, so I'm going to take it in hurling instead. Then we have, of course, the final round of action in the little LGFA leagues. Now, this one is different because there's no thing that can change when it comes to the league final, but there is for the relegation. So we have Kerry against Dublin and Austin Stack Park. We've Waterford against Mayo and Kilmacthomas. We've Kildare against Tyrone and St. Conleth's Park, and Armagh against Meath in the athletic grounds. It's already confirmed that Armagh will be playing Kerry in a repeat of last season's league final. So that means that the Armagh-Meath game and the Kerry-Dublin game, in a sense, are kind of dead rubbers. The Waterford-Mayo and Kildare-Tyrone games are anything but, because you look at the relegation places, you've got Mayo on 3 points, Tyrone on 3 points with a worse score difference, so Tyrone are actually last, and then Kildare in 6th place on 6 points. So if Kildare have a bad defeat to Tyrone, which I don't think they will, I think Kildare will do enough to survive. And if Mayo can put a big win against Waterford, it could go all over the place. Personally, I think that Kildare will beat Tyrone and take their safety into their own hands and get over the line that way. How do you think this is all going to go down?
I think it's probably going to be simplistic, to be honest with you. I do think Kildare will do enough to beat Tyrone. Even though Tyrone have done decent enough of this league campaign, they have beaten Mayo. They have alerted a few games. I thought when Tyrone came up to Division 1 after losing the intermediate final to Leitrim, I thought they were going to fold over, to be honest with you. They've competed really, really well. You have to give them a lot of credit for that. Mayo got a good win last weekend against Kildare, which probably just keeps them just within touching distance there. I think Kildare will beat Tyrone to ultimately end this promotion battle. And like, Kildare have done decent enough with kind of new players stepping up. Like I said, Gassa Dooley has been there over the last few years, but hasn't been one of the main players for Kildare. Alana Prizeman as well. And of course, Roisin Byrne. Like, they are missing Grace Clifford this year, which is a huge loss for Kildare, especially midfield. So to stay up in Division 1 would be a massive move for Kildare and the whole of that team. So I think Kildare will do enough to win that game, which takes it out of Mayo's hands, obviously. And I don't think Mayo will actually get a result against Waterford. I think Waterford will actually beat Mayo, because Waterford have been good. They've been really, really good so far. Like the likes of Bree McBaugh, in particular, Kellyanne Hogan, Laura McGregor. I think they might be a dark horse for Munster, Waterford.
Mm-hmm.
They look really, really good. I see them against Kerry below at SATU when it was on TG Car on the bank holiday Monday in February. They looked really, really good. I can't lie, really. So I think Waterford will do enough to beat Mayo. And yeah, like that's how the league will end. It will be a Kerry and Armagh League final once again, and should be an interesting game in a few weeks' time between those two counties.
Yeah, it certainly will be. Personally, that's how I think it's going to go. I think when it's all said and done, Mayo will be relegated. I think Kildare will do enough in their game, and I think Waterford will also prove too difficult to test for Mayo to overcome. Looking then at the other games that are taking place in the LGFA, just giving a quick roundup of what else you can catch this weekend. In Division 2, first of all, we have Clare against Galway in Doonbeg. We have Westmeath versus Monaghan in Ballynacargy. We have Roscommon versus Tipperary in St. Crown's, and Donegal versus Cork in Ballyshannon. In Division 3, we have Cavan and Limerick in Crossarlock, Offaly and Louth in O'Connor Park, Wexford and Laois in Wexford Park, Down and Carlow and Port Esler. And then in Division 4, we have the Ladies NFL Division 4 semi-finals, which are Antrim against Leitrim in King's Court Stars, and Fermanagh against Sligo in St. Barry's GAA. Personally, I'm going to go for Leitrim to beat Antrim and Fermanagh to beat Sligo. Do you have any disagreements on that?
Leitrim to beat Antrim, yes, and I think Fermanagh will do enough against Sligo. Yeah.
You think Antrim will beat Leitrim?
I think Leitrim will beat Antrim.
I said Leitrim to beat Antrim.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so we're both agreed.
It's nearly
even though I will say Antrim have really impressed me in this league campaign. But I think Leitrim, if they are to be serious, I know it was a brilliant story last year getting up to senior, but if Leitrim are to be serious in competing in senior level, they need to at least get out of Division 4. Mm-hmm. That's with the greatest respect to Division 4 teams. Leitrim need to get out of that division. So I think Leitrim will beat Antrim in the end.
Well, the fact is, like, they beat Tyrone, who are competing in Division 1, and they're in Division 4. Like, it's bonkers that a senior team is in Division 4. It's absolutely nuts. And then, just to wrap up this episode, we quick preview of the Camogie Division 1A's round 5. We have Cork against Galway. We have Waterford against Tipperary. And we also, we do not have a third game on this Saturday from the Camogie Division 1A. Not according to Scorpio. I'm just going to take a look forward.
Kilkenny against Dublin is Kilkenny the game.
Dublin, sorry.
Yeah.
Starting with, of course, your own County Cork against Galway, Waterford against Tip, and then Kilkenny Dublin. What are you expecting from these three?
Well, first of all, Cork are definitely in the Camogie final. That was confirmed last weekend with a big win over Tipperary. And Micheál did say in this week's Southern Star, obviously, go out to the shops and get it if you haven't already. But Maeve Callan did say that they haven't conceded a goal yet. And the fact they didn't concede a score from play against Tipperary, their defences look really, really good, Cork Camogie. It's looked really, really solid. And they look to be probably one of the front runners of the All-Ireland once again. Will they take the foot off the gas against Galway and kind of rest a few players and play a few players? I don't know, would that be Joe Manley's kind of mindset? That kind of depends, really. If Cork were to win this game, that will open the door for Tipperary to make a league final. They're playing Waterford. For the record, I do think Tipperary will beat Waterford. I think they're better than what they showed against Cork last weekend. It's just a matter of, will Cork play a second team or will they go hell for leather against Galway? I'm actually not sure what the mindset will be there. And in terms of relegation, then Kilkenny against Dublin is probably the main game for that. I do think Kilkenny will get over the line. So unfortunately for you, Seamus, it means Dublin will be relegated back to Division 1B. So sorry.
Yeah. It is what it is. Kilkenny with a bit of revenge probably for last year's semi-final defeat. But yeah, that's an hour and 36 minutes in the book. God damn. Yeah, that was a hell of an episode, guys. Thanks very much to Matthew for jumping on for another one. Absolute pleasure as always, man. Brian O'Riordan, Gavin O'Reilly, Liam White, NIRB, John McGarry. All of you, thank you so much. Sean O'Malley as well. All of you, thank you so much for your comments, throwing in improving the episode, making it what it was. I really, really enjoyed that one, long as it was. But let's see how much of those predictions we get right when the weekend is all said and done. That's another episode done here, guys, on Clear. We'll be back this Sunday at 8 p.m. with a weekend review of all the league finals, slotted in just before League Sunday starts on RT. Make sure you catch us then. Until the next one, guys, here on Clear, enjoy your weekend, enjoy the league finals, and take care.